The Radio Memories Network is brought to you in part by Liberated Syndication. Podcast publishing made easy. Libsyn.com. That's Libsyn.com.
You are standing at the doorway of a cabin on Cashier Creek. Up on the ridge, the bloodhounds have caught your scent. And between you and a fortune, between you and escape, yawn the white jaws of a deadly cottonmouth.
Escape, produced and directed by William N. Robeson, and carefully contrived to free you from the four walls of today for a half hour of high adventure.
Tonight we escape to the worn-out acres of a poor white trash farmer somewhere in the southern mountains. In Irvin S. Cobb's great tale of vengeance, Snake Doctor.
This story is about snakes and two men. One man was afraid of snakes and the other wasn't. The one who wasn't was known along Cashier Creek as Snake Doctor. His cabin was near the creek bottomland where there's a powerful lot of cottonmouths. And he earned his meager living by rendering down their soft fats, bottling the oil, and selling it. For everyone knew there was no remedy for rheumatism like snake oil. Snake Doctor was harmless enough, but there were folks who honestly believed that he was a colleague of Beelzebub just because he wasn't afraid of snakes. And that's not all they believed about him. The man who was afraid of snakes was Jafe Morner, who was Snake Doctor's nearest neighbor. Jafe was the kind of man we all know who suspected, feared, and hated anything he didn't understand. And he understood neither cottonmouths nor the Snake Doctor. In short, Jafe was ornery, ignorant, and shiftless. He'd rather shoot squirrels and chop cotton. He'd rather fish than hoe corn. And that's just what he's doing now, fishing down at the big hole with his son and heir, Finney, who's old enough but not quite bright enough to handle a gun.
Missed him, doggy.
Finney, you blame fool, I told you not...
He gets in the creek.
What?
The cottonmouth. Tramp on him in front of you.
Cottonmouth? Where the farmer? Unearthly
You got him. You got him. Keep your foot on him while I fetch a stick.
You don't need to, son. Yeah, he's dead. Now, come here.
How'd you hit anything of that rifle, Pa? I had a bead drawn on him riding. I couldn't...
You darn fool.
Pa.
On a flame snake whilst I'm a-fishing?
Heck, you was sunning yourself not more than to there from you. How'd you like to get yourself bit?
Won't be no fish around here till thunderation after all that racket. Well, come on, let's go home and get us some victuals. Jafe Morner tossed his bait can into the creek and threw a stick after it. He stood there watching the stick drift slowly toward the big hole, where the creek widened behind a jam of driftwood. Jake watched as the eddy caught the stick and sucked it beneath the dam. Jafe was curious. He moved downstream a rod or two and waited, watching the water boil up from under the driftwood. But the stick didn't come up. That was strange. Must have caught under there in a tangle of water-soaked and sunken logs. Probably it'd stay there for months. Maybe stay there always. Jafe considered this, and an idea began to form in his slow mind as he and Finney started home.
Hey, Pa. How much oil you reckons in this one? Pa? Pa?
What you jawing about, son?
This old cottonmouth. How much oil?
Slow it down.
Slow it down? Why?
Slow it down, like I say. I'll make you wish.
Pa. I was aiming on rendering the old cottonmouth fat like the snake doctor does. And maybe sell it and make myself some money.
I don't like the squirming things around me.
But it's dead.
Leave it where it drops. Now, come on home.
You was scared on cottonmouths, Pa?
I know better than to get myself bit by 'em.
Tip Bailey knowed a fella got himself bit once. There wasn't a drop of liquor for miles. So he goes to work and cuts open a live chicken and puts it by his leg where the bite was. And the fella lived, too.
Yeah.
Reckon Mr. Rives ever gets himself bit, Pa? Handling cottonmouths like he does?
Who?
Mr. Rives.
Who?
Mr. Rives. That's old snake doctor's real name. Ma says I oughtn't to call him snake doctor.
Never mind what your ma says. Nobody in my family's calling no snake-loving scum Mr. Rives.
Heck, that's what I say.
We'll see what you do.
Sure, Pa. No, I could have made myself some money rendering that cottonmouth fat down into oil. How much you reckon old snake doctor makes out in the oil he sells?
I don't know.
Tip Bailey says old snake doctor's got more than $1,000 hid away somewhere in his cabin.
More than that, most likely. Cussed old miser don't spend nothing. Ain't got nothing save that old rack-up-bones mare.
Tip Bailey says whenever old snake doctor sets foot out in his place, he's got the granddaddy of all cottonmouths that he leaves out in the cabin to stand guard on his money. Tip Bailey says he see old snake doctor put him in his pocket. Live cottonmouth.
Snake doctor ain't fitting to be alive itself.
Oh, Ma says he ain't bad. Says he don't mean nobody harm.
Your ma better be careful who she's associating with.
She says he don't have good sense. Had the fever too much, she says. You ever been in the snake doctor's cabin, Pa?
I don't have nothing more than I have to do with that snake-loving hoodoo.
Tip Bailey says he bet wouldn't be no task at all for some no-good poke around in the snake doctor's shack and find all the money and make off with it. Oh, this blame son done near rendering me down. Look at my head, full of sweat, Pa. Here, look it. See? Done near gourd full of sweat come off me. But why turn down that way, Pa? It's come on noon. Dinner be most ready.
I'm going to tell the snake-loving hoodoo that there's some of them cottonmouths on the creek side of our deadening.
Oh, heck, he knows that.
I'm going to tell him he's got my leave to catch him. You don't need to come along if you don't want it.
Well, if you're going over to his place, I'd kind of like to see it my own self. Go on in, Pa. He ain't so home, else he'd have showed himself by now.
I reckon so.
Can you see any of the snakes?
I told you to keep an eye out for him.
I bet's in one of them chinks, Pa. I bet the money's in
I
one
ain't
of
looking
them...
for no money. Must be a dang snake itself living in a place like this.
Pa, I know you ain't looking for any money, but if and you was, wouldn't you look in that chink right up there?
Where, son?
Right there, second log by the fireplace on the right. You see that there hole?
Yeah. I reckon I would look up there.
Well, since we're here.
Might as well see for myself.
Oh, I wouldn't be a mite surprised if old snake doctor... Pa.
Huh?
Somebody's out on the porch. It's the snake doctor.
You're looking for something, Chief Mourner?
Yeah, I was looking for you.
I want you.
Yeah. Look here, you old hoodoo. What's the idea of sneaking up on folks who took the trouble to come all the way down here to do you a favor?
Like it's not that old snake doctor. I had a dang mop.
A fiery horse with the speed of light, a cloud of dust, and a hearty hi-yo silver. The Lone Ranger.
Was when he come in. Dang, if it wasn't blazing like when you run across a little rabbit or a cat in the dark. Give me out of 10 years growth, dang it, Jim. And did you mind? I kept looking up at the wall where
This
I said I
is the
bet he had
legend
money.
of a man
We
and a
was
horse
king
and how they met. The story
Don't
of the
you say
Lone
nothing to your ma
Ranger
about
and
us
his
being
great
at the
horse
snake
Silver.
doctor's place, you understand?
Why should I,
Get
Pa?
stoned. Let's go nigh together.
The Lone Ranger and Tonto were trailing the worst outlaw in the West. His name was Butch Cavendish. They had followed his trail for many weeks, until finally they noticed that the hoof prints of the outlaw's horse were fresh.
We're close to Cavendish now.
Yes, Tonto. He can't be far ahead.
Hurry it up, son.
Him out
I'm hungry.
on us last time. Maybe better we shoot in sight.
No, I want to take him alive.
How you think
Shot.
I get
Look out.
Steady there, steady, boy.
burn off my gun and cock?
Killer in ambush. Him right way.
Tonto, he missed me, but he shot my horse. Get after
Get
him.
him up, brother.
Tonto's horse was tired and no match in speed for the animal Cavendish rode. The outlaw escaped. When Tonto returned from the futile chase, he found the Lone Ranger standing beside his dead horse.
A good horse,
Well, you
Tonto.
can come in.
Loyal, faithful, and brave.
Get
But my
some
next horse must be faster.
What do you want?
I wish that...
You wanted could have given
Tonto,
some for his
you've heard
ailment.
stories of a wild horse, a
Just about
fiery
to
white
drag
stallion.
one down foot for
Him
the
seen
other.
near valley over
Better
there,
could make
where
it up
Cavendish
here
go.
from this place.
We'll be on the lookout for the
He
wild
must be
horse
down
while we
big
follow
with the fever
Cavendish.
for now. Still by the touch was rising him when he left here and got back home. I gave him a dose out in our butler's aid to drop.
Tonto's horse carried the
would
Lone
have given
Ranger's
little
saddle,
Smith
his
no
saddlebags, and
leg,
you
bridle,
would.
while the masked man and the Indian continued on foot along the outlaw's trail. When they reached the top of a hill,
Look, Tonto.
they halted suddenly and stared at an awe-inspiring sight far down in the valley.
How many times I gotta tell you that
They saw a great white stallion in a death fight with a giant buffalo. The horse was plunging, rearing, charging, and dodging wildly, and the sun flashed from his coat as from a coat of polished silver. They realized that this was the legendary white stallion, the one ranchers and hunters had talked so much about.
Tonto, must have that horse. I'll try to shoot the buffalo.
It's too far for pistol shot.
I'll get closer before it's too late.
As he ran downhill, the Lone Ranger watched the battle. The sleek white stallion was nimble and courageous, but his strength began to wane. The buffalo charged again and again. The splendid muscles of the white horse were slower in responding, then too slow. He was caught by the buffalo's charge. Wet crimson stained his pure white coat. Another charge. The white horse saw it coming, and he couldn't dodge. He staggered and fell. The monster drew back and lowered his head for the death charge. And then, 2 shots rang out.
The ugly red
The buffalo
welt on
shuddered from the
brawny
impact
arm
of the masked man's
gave the
bullets.
frying
For an
pan
instant, he
bullet
stood
business
motionless,
beside me to hope
then
that,
fell.
He prayed that the weight of the missiles might take the edge off James Temple. Finney slouched in from the spring and saw the mark on her arm.
Pa be whomping you again, Mom?
She didn't answer.
What'd you do this time?
She silently dished up the hogback and cornbread for us 2 men, and
Cruelly
while they
battered
sat
and
at
bruised,
table,
the white stallion
he
lay
ate on a
quietly
feast,
as the Lone
serving
Ranger
them between
bathed his
bites,
wounds.
as was the custom
During
in
the
the
next
Varner
several
house.
days, the masked man and the Indian cared for the injured horse. Then the wounds were closed, and the horse's strength had returned. There was once more fire in his eye, a spring in his step, and his head was lifted proudly.
Kizzy sat on the porch,
Tonto,
fanning herself,
he's himself again.
Snuff with a peach twig,
Him plenty
scoured her
strong.
back and forth
Plenty
on a
good
gun.
horse.
I wonder if
Dave
he'll take a
took
saddle.
Kizzy's on the
Let's
floor of
try.
the back room.
Steady there.
But he
Steady,
didn't
boy.
One thing he'd
He get
seen
rope.
that day,
Him run away.
No,
and
Tonto,
another
wait.
thing he'd
There you
heard,
go.
he was
I'd like to
adding
have
them
that horse more
together.
than anything in the world.
That stick
But he
that had
deserves his
disappeared
freedom.
under the
He fought
log
for it.
jam. And the snake doctor's
He's turned to
money.
look at us.
It was
See how
4
the sun
o'clock
reflects
before
from
any
his
of
white
them
coat.
stood. Then Jabe
Him
spoke
look
to
like
his wife for
silver.
the first time.
Silver.
Where's
That
that
would be a
vial of
name
drink,
for him.
Kizzy?
By the window.
Look at him.
Took a dive in your pocket and you
Silver!
laid
Hey,
down.
Silver!
I ought to carry a vial of drink and liquor
Tonto,
with me, Mom.
he's coming back.
I might get
It's
bit
just as
by
if
an
he
old
knew what I
monster
said.
as Paul would.
Well, you better not let me.
Silver!
Find a
Silver,
daddy.
you
I
beauty.
just remembered I won't be
Hand me the
needing
halter,
to go
Tonto.
no along with me where I'm going.
I
As the
wouldn't
mighty
take no
stallion
chance.
felt the halter, he trembled as if from a chill. Every instinct told him that he must flee at once to preserve his freedom. And yet he stood his ground. It wasn't gratitude that kept him there. It was something stronger, some mysterious bond of friendship and understanding.
Reckon I'll
He
come
heard the
along,
man's
Paul.
voice,
You're staying
and
here.
he liked it.
Silver.
Dang it.
Silver.
Steaming in the place when the
We're
rain
going to
comes
be
down.
partners.
Paul, you might need to You stay here.
Use halter.
Now, Tonto, the saddle.
Oh,
Kizzy
no horse
set me up
like
a snack
that
of cold
takes
supper on the
saddle.
shelf
Never
right where I
was
won't
a
get
horse
back
like
to
this.
Slump Town.
Now, Silver, we're going to work together.
The horse was wild and unused to the ways of men, and the weight of a saddle and a rider.
Jabe
But the
Marner
masked man
turned
was a
north
kind
through his
teacher.
struggling
He was gentle yet
cornrows, and in a
firm,
minute
and
he was
Silver
lost
was
in
intelligent.
sight.
The stallion
Kept
seemed to
on
sense
for
the
nearly a
desires of the
mile
Lone
till he
Ranger
came to
and
a
did his best to
wild red
cooperate.
mulberry.
He learned quickly,
Where
and after
mulberries
several days
are,
of
they're
training,
bound to be
he was
squirrels.
ready.
Follow me, Tonto. I'm going after
He
Cavendish.
shot two
Come on,
young
Silver!
rays through the head. But Jake was a master marksman.
No
And,
hoofs had ever beat the plains like those
unsuspected
thundering
by any
hoofs of the
who knew
great horse Silver.
Jake had another
During the
quality,
past few
knife,
days,
mostly
Cavendish had
time.
gotten far away, but the
hadn't
masked
the
man and
imagination.
Tonto trailed him relentlessly
Today
with
it
only a
was his
minimum of
excellent
rest.
working order.
It took days to
He
cut
tied
down the
the
outlaw's
brave
lead,
squirrels
but at
together
long
and
last,
flung 'em over his
Cavendish
shoulder.
came into view.
There he
If
is.
needed,
Come on,
they
Silver!
would be his alibi.
The mighty stallion
Then he
responded
sat
with a new
down
burst
under
of
a
speed. Cavendish fired
Yeah, I
wild
got
shots
plenty
over his
time.
shoulder until his
Don't
gun
need
was
to
empty.
get down to Snake
His horse,
Doctor's
though
place
powerful and
about
fast, was no match for the charging
that
Silver.
way-back mare of his.
Fear and panic filled the outlaw's face. He heard the hoofbeats ever nearer, and then the masked man shout,
I want you, Cavendish!
The masked man's avowed mission was
He
accomplished.
sat out
The last of the Cavendish gang was captured to be tried by law and punished
Then
for
he
his
started
crimes.
off in a wide
There were many
arc
others
down
whose
Bailey's
criminal
Ranch,
plans were to be
off
challenged
the
by the Lone
Southern
Ranger,
Flat,
his
the
faithful
Southern
Indian
Flat,
companion
Cassia
Tonto,
Creek.
and his great horse
Took more than an
Silver.
hour Cap was traveling before he came to his destination. Between the harbor, less than 50 yards behind the Snake Doctor's cabin.
No matter how ailing he is, he'll get up and come out to feed that rack-of-bones mare. Mr. Ryan. I'll learn him to go colleaguing around another man's woman.
Jake Warner let his jealousy heat him to a white hatred. At this moment, he was avenging his honor, and thus was spared the embarrassment of admitting to himself that the real reason he was here was the Snake Doctor's money hidden behind the log by the fireplace.
The home-wrecking, snake-loving varmint. 10 minutes and I'll chunk him down the big hole in a creek like I did that stick this morning, and he'll go down and never come out. And nobody'll miss him. Nobody'll know he's gone for leastwise a week, maybe a month. Maybe if I get around to it, I might come back this way someday. Poke around that cabin of his.
Jafe Warner's speculations were cut short. The cabin door opened, and a figure stepped out into the growing dusk and walked toward the stable. He saw the Snake Doctor's loppy old straw hat and his dark coat drawn over a pair of hunched, narrow shoulders. At this distance, he couldn't miss. And he didn't. The figure jerked backward and then went face forward. Jafe started for him, and then he stopped. His eyes bugged. His mouth formed a scream that he couldn't utter. His rifle dropped to the ground. He had just killed the Snake Doctor, killed him dead with a .32 caliber slug through the head. And there on his doorsill stood Snake Doctor, whole and sound and staring at him.
Jake Warner, what you done?
The scream came at last, but Jafe Warner had seen the devil, this Snake Doctor who arose alive from his bullet-riddled body. Jafe whirled and ran into the deep, darkening woods, whimpering like a whipped puppy as he tore through the brush. Escape. He must escape. He must get under the shelter of a sound roof, have the protection of four walls around him. So he ran and ran for hours. It was close to midnight when he came out on a dirt road a short distance southeast of his detonate. Beyond the next bend, he'd be in sight of home. Then he stopped. Around the bend, coming toward him, was a joggling light, a lantern hanging on a buggy. Jake flattened himself in a clump of brush to hide until the traveler passed. And then, just as the rig was opposite him, he heard a call coming from the other direction.
Jogging. Oh, there. Oh, now, steady. Oh, me, it's Davis Ware. Is that you, Tip Bailey? Yep. Hoping it out from the junction. Tolerable tired, if anyone should ask you. What brings you out this time of night, Davis? Somebody sick?
Heck, nothing. There's been hella popping in these here bottoms tonight. Steady, boy, I'm steady.
Now, what you mean?
A killing, that's what I mean. A dirty, cold-blooded killing if there ever was one.
Don't say. Who's gotten killed?
I'm fixing to tell you. It happened just around dusk time at old Snake Doctor's place.
Yeah? Was him was killed?
Now, just give me time now.
Yeah?
It seems like Snake Doctor's been a killing lately.
Uh-huh.
Pretty bad off today. Yesterday. And so long about 5 o'clock when the rain was a lulling a little bit, Why, Miss Kitty Warner, see, she footed it down from her place to his and fetching some physic with her and a plate of hot victuals.
Miss Mourner's a mighty sorry one for doing things for folks.
Don't you want to hear this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, seems like she wasn't afeard of the snake doctor's place.
Well, I'd have been all over that.
Well, pretty soon after she got there, seems like he tried to get up out of his bed to go feed that old crowbait nag of his.
Uh-huh.
Rain had started in again, but then just pouring down hard, so she made him stay where he was at, and she put on his old hat and throwed his old coat around her to keep off the worst of the wet, and then she started out the back door to do the feeding herself.
Yeah?
And no more than she got outside and a shot come from the edge of the woods, and down she went with a bullet through her brain.
Killed her.
Dead as a dog.
But who done it?
Well, that low-flung husband of hers done it. That's who. He must have followed her down to Snake Doctor's and then just laid in wait for her.
They certain 'twas him then.
Why, sure thing. Snake Doctor jumped up when he heard the shot, and he catched a quick look at Jape over the fence.
He did.
Yeah, there was a long streak on Kiss's arm where he must have whooped her at during the day.
Well, hanging's a sight too good for him to catch him.
No, but they will. Some thinks that he's made for the slashes and hid out there. Tracks led off that way.
Uh-huh.
Oh, there'd be a line of men throwed all the way around Little Cypress before sundown.
Sheriff got there yet?
No, but he's due any minute with his pack of dogs. They telephoned in from Gallup Mills that he's on his way. That trail ought to lay good, ground being damp like it is.
Sure should.
Old Snake Doctor, he's crying on and raving around up at Mourner's place that the Lord's going to strike the murder down his track. I'm putting my main confidence in them bloodhounds. On them first, and then maybe on the stout plow line and the limb of a tree.
Yeah, it's more certain.
Yeah, I'm just putting out from my place to fetch my oldest boy. I wouldn't want him to miss a lynching. There's a good-sized crowd up there already.
I'll go up and join him. I got a pistol here in my hip pocket. Poor Miss Mourner. She always was
Kizzy.
a good-hearted, hard-working...
She's dead. A shot Kizzy.
Did you hear something just there?
Oh, I can't say I did.
Probably a rabbit breaking through the brush.
Listen.
Huh?
Sheriff's a-coming. You can hear them hounds of his, and I got to hurry. Get up there,
I'll see you back to morning.
Well, you sure will.
Jafe didn't have time to waste mourning his dead wife. He was even a little relieved to know that the Snake Doctor wasn't the devil incarnate. He had a chance against a lynch mob and a pack of bloodhounds. This was the kind of antagonist he could understand and outsmart. Jafe's imagination went to work again as he backtracked along the creek bottom in the spotty moonlight.
Gotta throw them dogs off the trail. Gotta wade the creek, even if it is full of cottonmouths. They must be all around me now. But folks says they don't strike no water. And I hope them folks is right. Gotta get back to the Snake Doctor's. Get his money while he's still up at my place with Kizzy's remains. When he get his money, then the rest would be easy. Make for the deep timber. Cross country's river. Make it by tomorrow sundown. Hire a shanty boater to ferry me to the Arkansas side. Get a haircut and catch a train for somewhere else. Gotta get Snake Doctor's money first.
Snake Doctor's cabin was dark and empty when Jafe reached it, and he needed light for his search. There were a few dull embers in the fireplace. He threw on some kindling, but it didn't light. Very well. He knew where the chink was. He'd find it in the dark. He scrabbled at the logs, felt some bark give, felt the clay mortar crumble under his fingernails. Here it was, a hole big enough for a man's arm. He plunged his hand into it, touched something slick and smooth, and then something sharp plunged into his thumb. The fire flickered to life. Jake yanked his hand out of the hole, saw two tiny bleeding punctures in his thumb. At the mouth of the hole stretched the wide open jaws of a cottonmouth. It worked fast. He felt the pain leaping from his thumb to his hand, seeping up his arm. He only had some liquor. If he had a fresh killed chicken to slap on the wound, he had nothing. Then a sharp, horrible pain wrenched his heart, and a second. And there in the firelight, the huge cottonmouth poised in its crevice. Jafe leaped out of the shack and started blindly for the timber, staggered, stumbled, and pitched forward on his face. His open mouth full of weeds and muddy grass stems. The cramping fingers of his outstretched right hand almost touching a reddish-black smear on the wet, trampled grass.
Good riddance, Bart Gravy. That's good riddance. justice, I'd call it that, wouldn't you, Dr. Bradshaw?
Well, I reckon there's sort of a rough justice in the way he died. Look, his hand reaching out. Just about touches the blood where his woman fell. This has been quite a night, Davis. I've just examined the body of a man who appears to have been killed by snake bite. Killed good and quick, too, judging by the evidence.
Well, Doc, ain't that the way a cottonmouth always does kill a man sudden like? I always heard tell that...
Never mind what you heard. I'm going by the facts. I've been practicing medicine in this county for going on to 46 years. And I tell you that in all my life, I've never known but 2 or 3 people actually being bitten by water moccasins. And until tonight, I never had the personal knowledge of anybody dying from a bite of any kind of a snake.
Well, is that a fact? Hey, what's going on over there, Doc?
That Mourner's boy kicking up the fuss?
Yeah, he's a no good, just like his pa.
What's the trouble, Tip?
I'm going to kill a snake and bitten my paw. Then I'm going to give that old snake doctor a whooping for keeping a reptile in this place.
Your pa got just what is his due, Finney. Snake doctor ain't to blame none.
He's a hoodoo devil.
Look here, boy. Mr. Rives promised all his savings, nearly $100 to pay for burying your ma decent. That's how much he thought of her. Now go on home, behave yourself.
Yeah, go on, Finney. Ain't no
Somebody ought to kill that reptile and bit my paw, and I'm going to do it.
Hey, Doc, just a minute ago you started to say something about snake bite not killing. How you account for Jafe here?
Well, the late Jafe Mourner had a rotten bad heart, Davis.
Oh, he sure did. Yes, it proves that.
I don't mean in that sense. I mean there was an organic weakness. A curious thing, though, there was no swelling anywhere.
Well, there's them 2 marks on his thumb, them snake gashes like some I've seen.
Now, that don't explain how... What's...
Hey, it's Billy Mourner. He's in the cabin.
That fool kid. Come on, Doc. He's probably shot somebody.
I shot at it, but I didn't hit it. He's going to get me like he got my paw.
Hey, come on, Doc. Come on. He said he shot at something in the cabin.
Well, I don't see anything.
Oh, Finney's had enough happen to him yesterday to upset even a bright boy. So we can... Oh, there it is.
What?
That cottonmouth up there in the hole of that log.
Oh, that. The snake doctor told me about that varmint. Look at him closer, David.
Oh, no, sir, not me.
Go ahead. It's just a stuffed snake.
Stuff?
Yeah. Snake doctor believes in precautions, 'cause that hole's where he hides his money. That snake could scare anybody away who didn't know it was stuffed. But just to be sure, old snake doctor lined the hole with coils of barbed wire.
Oh, I see. You think that them marks on Jafe's thumb was got off of the barbed wire, huh?
That could be. Lots stronger hearts than Jafe Mourner's would have stopped beating at a scare like that.
Well, I'll be sweet. Old snake doctor's a cute one, ain't he?
Escape, produced and directed by William N. Robeson, has brought you Snake Doctor by Irvin S. Cobb, adapted for radio by Fred Howard, who also played Doc Bradshaw. With Bill Conrad as Jafe, Paul Frees as Finney, Ruth Parrott as Kizzy. Barton Yarborough played Davis, Louis Van Ruten played Snake Doctor and Tip Bailey. The original musical score was conceived and conducted by Cy Feuer. Next week...
You are alone in a remote old world village inhabited by cat people. And you are desired by a beautiful cat girl who wants your soul.
Next week, we escape with Algernon Blackwood's eerie story titled Ancient Sorcerers. Good night, then, until the same time next week when we again offer you Escape. This is CBS, where 99 million people gather every week, the Columbia Broadcasting System.